A warm welcome to episode 18 of Lost for Words, a podcast where we explore the opinions, glories, and interesting stories of guests. I am your host Jason, and for this week I am joined by Gemma Skinner. We speak about Gemma's interest in pole dancing and how this was a prelude for her doing modelling shoots. She is an activist and an outspoken supporter of body positivity, and we chat a fair bit about this as well as the impact of the media in shaping young people's perceptions of how bodies should be, particularly young girls. We round off by discussing Gemma's choice to be a vegan and have a discussion about her numerous tattoos and what life will be like for her as the restrictions ease off. Gemma is very insightful and honest, so I think you'll enjoy this one. I will speak to you on the other side. A quick housekeeping note before we get started. Please leave a rating or a review wherever you get your podcasts, whether that be Apple, Google, Spotify, Podbean, or any other platform. It's the best way the podcast can grow and better content can be produced for you, the listener. It's your listening experience that matters the most. But enough from me, now on to today's episode of Lost for Words. How are you? Are you okay?
I'm fine. Yeah, all right.
What have you got planned today?
I have a pole class after this, and then I'm going for lunch. So,
Nice. Where you go? Anywhere nice?
I think we're gonna go to the Picnic. It's a wee vegan place in Merchant City. I've never been before, but
Nice, very nice. Right, I'll get started then. Won't keep you
right.
waiting. Right, so we'll start off with the pole dancing.
Cool.
So how young were you when you first realised pole dancing was something that interested you?
So I started when I was 18, but I think I just moved to Glasgow, and I was kind of just fancying trying something different. Yeah, 18.
Where did you move to Glasgow from?
Troon. So I moved for work when I was about, I think I just turned 18, moved from Troon.
And was anybody that inspired you to try pole dancing? What was it that attracted you to it in the first place?
So it was one of my pals that I'm going for lunch with today. She followed me on Instagram, and I just thought it was like the coolest thing I'd ever seen in my life. And then I sort of messaged her about it a wee bit, and then she owns the studio that I go to, and then I just started like a week later, I think.
And as an adult now, so it's adult, I suppose you're still an adult when you're 18. What would you say is the appeal?
I'd say it's like, obviously there's like the fitness and exercise side to it, like it is really good for exercise and stuff like that, and it doesn't feel like a lot of hard work, but then it's also like it's just a nice community. Like there's loads of, like, I've met like so many friends through it, and it's just like it's just always like good fun, like a good vibe, that kind of thing.
See, as I don't pole dance, I'd assume most men don't, but I would associate it with like having a feeling of empowerment.
Oh, definitely, yeah, because I feel like you're just always amazed by like what your body can do, and just like because it's a place where you can just wear what you want and look exactly how you want, and there's no judgment at all, then it's definitely very empowering.
Is it something that requires a good base of fitness, or is it something that you would build up that over time?
So it helps if you do start with a bit of fitness. Like, I mean, I'd always done dancing, but like my fitness was like my upper body strength, and so it was like non-existent. But it builds up. So it helps, but it's not necessary at all.
I know there's like competitions, you get pole dancing competitions. Is that something you ever did, or would you ever consider?
I've never done it, and I don't think I would do it. I think I would prefer to just keep pole as something like casual and fun for me. I'd feel like I would find it too much pressure, a bit stressful. But what I would quite like to do is, like, my studio do sort of in-house performances. It's just sort of friends and family. So I'd like to do something like that at some point when we can, obviously.
Interesting. So, are there any common misconceptions about pole dancing? And I would say probably leaning towards the type of sexualization that it gets sometimes.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think there used to be. So there used to be, well, I suppose there still is, but there used to be this thing that like it was just thought of if you do pole dancing, you're a stripper,
Yeah.
and that sort of moved on a bit to the point where people think that it's got to be called pole fitness and it can't be anything to do with stripping, whereas like that's where pole came from. So it's kind of people worry about offending you when they call it pole dancing or like refer to like the clubs or anything, whereas it's sort of it all, it's all the same kind of thing and it's all celebrated.
Then that gets into the full conversation of demonising sex work, whereas
Well, exactly.
it's probably not the way that we should be going in 2021.
Yeah, exactly. Especially like because everything that we like do with like whether you do pole fitness or the sort of pole dancing or more the sort of stripper style, like it all comes from strippers and strip clubs. So you can't do pole and not acknowledge that.
Yeah, good. And I was looking through your Instagram. You have a good few bruises and injuries you've picked up. What would you say your worst one has been?
I mean, honestly, I would say I get them after every single class. I tend to. I had one recently, just all down my back and all down the inside of my arm, and it was just from just quite a basic move, but it tends to be if you just repeat something over and over until you get it, kind of thing, and then you just end up black and blue. But yeah, it tends to be after every class. Yeah.
And if someone was considering pole dancing but was sitting on the fence or wasn't sure, what would you say to convince them to try it?
I would say it's always worth giving it a go. I know so many people and like myself included that it's just been like a total like game changer for them. So I think like all there's so many studios in Glasgow and like all over the UK, and they tend to do like taster classes, and it's like it's an hour of your life. I think you may as well just try it. And I think a lot of people are surprised by like how much fun they find it and how nice people are, and yeah, I think it's just always worth giving it a go.
I'm going to tell you like an anecdotal story. So there was a woman, she came in to work with like some of the trouble, quote unquote trouble children, and she came across really quiet, and then I knew her because she's my cousin's friend, and she had like a pole fitness academy from the East End, and I remember the look on the management's faces when they found out about it, and you're like. And it was like, geez, we're going a bit towards Victorian times here, because what she does in her spare time, she's fit, she's healthy, it brings a lot of joy to a lot of women doing it, so I don't get why it's a big deal at all.
Oh, definitely. I like all the girls I pull with, a lot of them are like doctors, I know lawyers, teachers. One of my old instructors, she was a doctor. And it's a shame that people have to, just like keep their hobby like to themselves, just like when when everybody else can share what they do and it's just the same thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, move on to the modelling. So was modelling a springboard from pole dancing, or are the two completely separate?
So I would say I wouldn't have started doing the modelling if I didn't do pole, because that was when I became sort of comfortable, like taking pictures and just wearing what I wanted to wear and stuff like that. And then, I think that sort of reflected on my Instagram. And then a few photographers kind of reached out to me. So it kind of, so I suppose it did. Yeah, it sort of came through that. Yeah.
And see, to be a model, is it still a height thing? Does that mean you're quite tall?
I am quite tall, but it's totally not anymore. I feel like there's like your Instagram modeling and then your sort of more traditional modeling. Your more traditional modeling is like when you're doing, like catalogs and catwalks and stuff like that, which that isn't my thing. But so I suppose it matters for that. But for just your sort of like basic photography, like sort of fashion style stuff, it doesn't matter so much.
So for the catalogue and fashion type stuff that you don't do, if I had to flip that round, what is the type of modelling that you do?
That's I mean, I prefer to do the sort of boudoir kind of thing, kind of like lingerie thing. I do quite a lot of pole stuff as well. Um, but I'm also like, if somebody comes to me with an idea and, fancies doing something a bit different, then I'll do that sort of thing as well. But I tend to stick to like just working with sort of amateur photographers rather than doing like majorly professional things.
Yeah. And when do you remember when your first modelling shoot? Do we call it a shoot?
Yeah, yeah, shit. It was 2.5 years ago. Yeah, so not that long ago. Yeah,
So how old are you now? Don't think I asked. Sorry.
I'm 22.
So you started that when you were 19, 20?
Yeah, I would have been, yeah, just about to turn 20, I think. Yeah.
Good. So, realities of modelling, I would assume it's something that people only ever see the finished picture at the end, or pictures. And I'd imagine the experience for you being the model and the photographers and anybody else involved would be vastly different to what people see at the end. So, how long do you typically spend at a shoot?
So it depends if I'm just doing like one location, say we're just doing something in like an Airbnb or a hotel or something like that, you tend to be like about 4 hours, 3, 4 hours, but you're just going solidly. So it's quite tiring for everybody involved because you're just like, you can't switch off for a second. Whereas like when I've done things that are like kind of outdoors or we've traveled, then you're kind of talking like the whole day on and off.
What's the earliest you've needed to get up to be at a set?
Um, I think about maybe like 5 or 6. I mean, I think I left Glasgow to go and do a shoot up north, and we left about 8 o'clock. So I had to be up at about half 5, 6 ish to get ready. It's the hair and makeup that takes the time.
And how does it work for an outdoor shoot? Have you ever been to an outdoor one and the weather hasn't been up to scratch and you've had to just completely scrap it and go again later?
So well, it's only happened to me once, but we did kind of work around it. So we had like the whole day. We shot at the first location, and I've got like a stage pole, and we'd taken the pole like in the back of the car, set that up on a wee beach. And the morning it was fine. We got decent weather, and then we drove for another few hours, and it was just absolutely torrential rain. And we were like, right, we've driven all this way, we can either turn around and go home, or we can just set it up and go for it. So we just set up the pole, middle of nowhere, torrential rain, and I couldn't do anything on the pole because it was so wet. So it was just a lot of posing. But some of the best pictures came from that. We just went with it and stood in the rain for a bit and did it as quickly as possible.
Good. Would you consider yourself someone who easily takes direction?
I am just like, I'm not majorly confident in it. So I know what I'm doing a bit, but if someone is telling me what to do, I'm very grateful for that because then I know I'm doing what they want. So I will just take as much as I can get, like as much advice.
And in your experience, how many photos are taken before the one is chosen to go on, let's say, Instagram?
So it depends on the photographer. Like I've worked with people and they've sent me over like 300 photos or something, and then I've worked with people and they'll send me like 8 photos. So it kind of depends on them. Uh, I'd say like normally you're going from a few hundred and then they'll cut it down and then they send over like the ones that they're happiest with, and then I'll sort of choose the ones that I like the best from there.
How does that work with the back and forth then? Is that something you're paid for, or do you and the photographer do you both do it for free? I have no idea. So how does that work in terms of the finances?
So I usually, it's called like TFP, so it's like time for print. So um I would both work for free. Usually that's how I work. Um I've done a few paid things before, but I like to sort of, I only do it if it's something I'm like a sort of style I'm confident in, just so there's no pressure like I'm being paid to do something that I'm not too confident in. But I like to just sort of, it's more of like a collaboration with a photographer, that sort of thing.
Good, good. And do you have a process or a criteria in terms of, say, ethical considerations that you would go through before you chose to work with someone or not?
Yeah, so I do, because of the style of modelling that I do, like I prefer to work with women, and I prefer to, like support a female business. That's just sort of personal preference. And at the end of the day, it is when I'm, like kicking about with a next to nothing, it is better to sort of be with a woman, in my opinion. But I've worked with plenty of guys and never had any issues, but I do always get sort of references from people and only really work with people that I've friends have worked with and stuff like that.
Have you had any negative experiences on a modelling shoot?
Never have. I never have, fingers crossed. But I think it is because I always, because I do get quite a lot of people reaching out to me, and you do get quite a lot of, questionable Instagram profiles like coming to you, like, and you do sort of need to check them out a bit and, make sure they're legitimate. So I think as long as I do that, I'll be fine. Just
Regards to some of the things that you post, like say you post a photo from a shoot and you're wearing like lingerie, as you say. Are there a lot?
Mhm.
Do you ever get negative stroke weird comments?
I've never had negative comments. I've had plenty of weird ones though. They tend
And
to
do they tend to come from men, I'm going to say?
yes, they do. The message requests tend to be a bit of a weird place sometimes.
And how
Doesn't
do you deal with? Is that something that bothers you, or do you have a way that you just sort of screen them out so it doesn't affect you at all?
Yeah, I tend to just it goes straight to the message requests and I delete them. Honestly, they don't bother me at all. They tend to get some amusement from them. I think it's also just something that like most girls with social media are used to. So
But then I
I do.
think, see, when you hear girls saying that though, it's like it's a bit of a fucking failure of men really and the social media
Mhm.
use, because that shouldn't be accepted. I think you see things like this going on all the time, and I find it
Mhm.
a bit strange that it's not surprising.
Yeah, it's like nobody nobody's like getting anywhere from that as well. It's like all these creepy messages. It's like that's never worked for anybody. So it's so weird to me that it still happens and it's still doing it.
These people these men, we'll just call it for what it is, these men that do it, that
I
you wonder when they're sitting there with their phone, like
what the thought
realistically,
process.
right, where's my path to success here? What is
I
my...
absolutely are like, has this ever worked for you before? Like, I highly doubt it. So
And if it does, I say if it has worked before, right, and they get their 1 out of 100, then I have a real fear for that one girl. That what does that say about her? That's
yeah, there's probably something else going on there. So.
right. So I'm going to move on to body positivity, because I've seen you have referenced that in a couple of your posts, and I wanted to get your views on that. So tell me, in your words, what is body positivity?
So, I mean, I think it's different for everybody. For me, it's just kind of not apologizing for how my body is or how anybody's body is and sort of just existing unapologetically and just, whether you're that sort of societal, like perfect image or whether you have that or not, um, just being confident in what you are and expressing that.
And how do you express it? How does one express body positivity?
Um, I mean, I think it's different for everybody. Like my way of doing it is, the modeling and pole and posting the pictures and just even if I'm like, oh, like, maybe I don't look my best in that one, or maybe like I look a bit bigger in that one. I'm just like, I just post it anyway because I just think, well, if I like it, I'm not bothered about offending anyone. So
Yeah, I like your captions. Some of your captions are good for that because you're aware of what people may think, but you totally fly in the face of that anyway, which is really good.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. I'm like, I've never, I'm lucky enough to have never had any comments like that. So it's easy enough for me to post things like that. I think it's more difficult when it is people who do get the negative comments and stuff like that. I think that's when it's really impressive when people can still continue to like just post themselves, be themselves.
And why do you think there is a stigma towards certain body types or a non-typical? Because I think fashion and society leans heavily towards this idea of certainly females being thin. Why is that, and why
Yeah,
is that a failure, would you say?
it's just like the media that we've grown up with. It's just like it started from, like TV and magazines and stuff when we were younger. It's just like, like the early 2000s, all you saw was like very, very thin white women. That's all you saw anywhere. And then move like going on to like social media as we got older, it was the same kind of thing. And it was like sort of advertising and brands and stuff. They'd just be pushing this one body type as well. So it just sort of became, it was just all anybody ever saw. But I think that is changing now.
Yeah, so as a society then, how do you think that we can continue to make sure that it does change and we become more accepting of all body types?
I think it's just a case of like showcasing people that don't have your sort of like ideal body type supposedly. It's like like putting a focus on like women of color, bigger women, people that aren't just like there's a lot of like plus size models that are what people would call like acceptably plus size, like kind of like big boobs, big bum, like curvy. Whereas I think there just needs to be more of like women of all shapes and sizes kind of thing, not just the ones that can be, accepted in society.
Even that you're saying the plus size model, like I've never really been in tune with female fashion modeling and such, but I always remember being amazed by the idea of what a plus size model is supposed to be, and then you see that
Mm-hmm.
the woman and she's just normal, like a
Yeah.
normal somebody that who is BMI or whatever would be on average an average weight for her height would be considered a plus size model, and
Yeah.
that
Mm-hmm.
that shouldn't she shouldn't be plus size. The models that are thin should be called out for being thin rather than somebody being labelled for being normal. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Like it's just, it's made to be like, oh, what am I trying to say here? Like, like the norm is like unhealthy. Like that's kind of what it's become. And, like that's an issue in itself. Like, there shouldn't be like thin shaming either. Like, I feel like sometimes it goes from one extreme to the other. Like, you can celebrate some body size, like all body sizes, without having to criticize people that are thinner because that's all right as well.
I think that the trickle down effect of that's dangerous as well because you've got young girls whose ideas of acceptability and what is desired is really warped because
Mm-hmm.
they see that is acceptable is to be thin, whereas
Mm-hmm.
it's just not the case at all, and it should be you being happy rather than having to conform to being thin.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, yeah, like a lot of young girls just now just grow up constantly on social media. So I think it's quite quite important for like social media platforms to be showcasing different body sizes. So if young girls, they're not just seeing really thin white women. That's like and thinking, oh, that's the way to be. That's how that's how I'm gonna be my best self. Whereas if they're seeing all different types and shapes and colors of women, then that makes them know that everybody's worthy of that.
Yeah, and in a world of influencer culture, I think if 100 influencers were put in front of you, then I think I could quite confidently say that 99 of them are going to be thin white women.
Yeah, that tends to be. Yeah.
Do you think companies should be more proactive and in finding and using models that are of all body types?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think that's like one of the, biggest and most important ways of like tackling the problem and promoting body positivity. I think it just all comes down to the media and the women that we see, like in adverts on the TV, whatever. Like companies like really have a responsibility to showcase everyone. Definitely.
Right, move on from there then, just to round off a bit about getting to know you. You were saying that you're a vegan, and so tell me about that. When did you decide that being a vegan was for you?
So I think it would be just over 5 years now since I went vegan. I went veggie about 6 years ago. It's always been something that I thought about. And when I was younger, I would, like go on and off, like tell my mum that I was vegetarian now, and she'd be like, right, okay, whatever. Um, but then I got really serious about it when I was about 17. I had a lot of friends that were vegan, and then started educate myself, watching all the documentaries. I remember it was Cowspiracy, I think one of them was, and I watched that, and then I was like, right, okay, like this totally, like going vegan is just the only option for me. And then over the next, I'd say it was about 6 months, to be honest, like it was just switching out things, making small changes, and then yeah, just been completely vegan ever since.
If you had to name your favourite three vegan restaurants, or even normal restaurants with the best vegan menus, what would they be?
Um, so in Glasgow, I'd say Mono. It's completely vegan. It's one of my favourites. Um, Block are really good. They do meat as well, but they've got an amazing vegan menu. And then oh, there's a sort of Chinese restaurant called Lotus, and it's a completely vegan restaurant down just outside of town, and it's amazing. It's amazing. Like just everything they do, you would never know it was vegan. They just do everything that you would get in a normal Chinese, but vegan versions.
Amazing. So I would totally agree with Block, and they get really good specials during the week, I'm sure as well. That
Yeah,
yeah,
like so cheap as well. Yeah.
props to them. So moving on then to the tattoos. Interested to ask about this. How many do you have?
So I was trying to count them. So I mean, it depends. I've got like lots of small ones on my fingers, so it depends if we're counting them. But between like 25 and 30.
And if you had to guess, how much do you think you've spent on tattoos?
So I've never actually thought about this because I think it'd be quite painful to think about it. But I think like maybe like like 6 or 7 grand, maybe. Quite a lot.
Impressive, impressive. And how young were you when you realised that tattoos were going to be something for you? Because I think it definitely isn't just a thing that you turn 18 and decide, I want to do that. It's something you would manifest in yourself for a long time before that.
Yeah. I'd always wanted them, always like my whole life. And then, like I used to just, when I was like 13, 14, I used to get stupid piercings and stuff, even though I didn't really like piercings. It was just because I was so desperate to get a tattoo. And then I think I was a little bit younger than 18 and I started getting some.
What would you say? So, say there probably are still people who are the quote unquote tattoos are, they show a lack of class and that you get that
Mhm.
mindset. So, what would you say to someone who was of that opinion?
I don't know if I'd even give them the time of day, to be honest. No, like honestly, I would just say it's like it's not that deep. It's just art. It's just a the same way you would put a picture on your wall. It's just, I'm like, I like this so much that I want to have it on me all the time. And I think they need to sort of see past that and just see like how beautiful they can be and how beautiful the art can be.
My mum used to say, so you've just said that analogy about putting the picture on the wall. My mum used to always
Mm-hmm.
say that like she would consider her body to be a canvas, and that when she
Mm-hmm.
got a tattoo, she was putting something on a canvas. And I thought
Yeah.
that's quite a clever way to put it in terms of, because I think it's one of these things that there is a weird, people have got a weird, not obsession, what's the word for it? Objection, sorry. A weird objection to them when it's clearly something that doesn't affect their life in any way.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you've got 25 tattoos, what's the point of me criticising them because it's nothing to do with
Well,
it?
that's
Doesn't
it. It's like,
impact, yeah, it doesn't impact my life at all.
it's not like you can just, turn around and get rid of them. So it's like, what is the point in being negative towards them? Like, if you don't like them, that's fine. That's, everybody's got an opinion, but I think it's one that maybe should be kept to themselves.
Talk to me a bit about your work then. So am I right in saying you're a lash technician?
Yeah, so, well, I started out as a makeup artist. I'm still a makeup artist, but obviously there's just not been a lot of business for that recently. Um, so I started doing makeup when I was 16. It's pretty much all I've ever done since I left school. And then about 3 years ago, I started doing lashes, just did a wee day course. And then I've sort of built that up since, and I'm just pretty busy with it now. My best friend owns a salon, and I work with him in there, and it's great. I love it.
How how badly did COVID impact? So I guess you're doing the lash tech and makeup artistry. That is definitely two industries that were absolutely shafted by COVID.
Mm-hmm.
What like was it
Yeah.
you? How was the pandemic for you in terms of your work?
So for makeup, it was a total write off. I think I did like two makeups in a year, and I only had like my first proper makeup wedding job last week. Um, Lashes, when we were in, what was it, like level 3, I think we were able to have the salon open and work, but obviously we were still closed for massive amounts of time. Um, I'm self-employed. I think most people in this industry are self-employed, so we did get, well, most of us got the government grants. It was still like a fraction of what we would be earning normally. So I know a lot of people did have to, look into other jobs or give up their salons or whatever. But I was lucky enough that it was just enough for me. So.
And for you personally, so go with your work first. How
Mhm.
does restrictions easing off help with you being able to work and make a good income?
Yeah, so lashes, it's people going on holiday is always really big business. People going out, they like to get them done. And then, with more people being able to go to weddings, nights out, stuff like that, makeup will really pick back up again. So it's a total game changer for us, really, especially with makeup.
And if you think about your experience of the pandemic on a personal level, what got you
Mhm.
through the deepest, darkest depths of level 4 lockdowns?
For me, it was totally pole. It was my pole studio. Did like online classes 2 or 3 times a week. They had like Netflix party movie nights and quizzes. I had PT sessions as well, just over Zoom. So it was really, it was stuff like that, just keeping me busy. And I got a pole for my flat as well, so that was handy.
As the restrictions then ease off, and hopefully we get to moving towards level 0 or 0.5 because it seems to change all the time.
Whatever that is now.
What are you looking forward to as we get in quote unquote normality?
Um, I'm really looking forward to being able to travel. That's always been my thing. I always take a good few weeks off a year to travel as much as I can. So I mean, I suppose that's still a bit away. So that eventually, but also just I'm looking forward to nightclubs opening, being able to go to the cat house, being able to go to gigs, being able to stay out all night and stuff like that, pretty much.
Good. And the last thing I wanted to ask about was, I think you put up on your Instagram yesterday, and I was absolutely howling at it. It's when you said you wanted a running buddy, but men need not apply.
Yeah.
So what? Like, not why? I don't want to sound like I'm complaining, but why?
Um, Here's the thing: is that I don't want anybody to be like, thinking it's a potential dating possibility. I'm like, that is definitely not the situation I want. I'm also, I find I'm a bit of, I don't want to call myself a man hater, but I think quite a lot of people would call me that. But I like my girl pals, and I feel like, especially when girls are probably in the same boat as me, whereas you don't want to go out running on your own because of men. So, it'd be nice to
have a girl
have that
running
sort of
pal.
bond. Yeah.
Do you know something? See, as I wanted to ask you because obviously I'm a man, right? But men don't help themselves, and I totally understand sometimes why. If females are men haters, we don't help ourselves, so kind of have to just accept it for what it is because it's us that have created the scenario.
Yeah.
But no, I wanted to mention that because I thought that was really funny.
Yeah, I know. I feel like a lot of people possibly be offended by that, but I'm not really a man hater, I swear.
But no, that's right. That's me in terms of all the questions. So where can people find you on social media?
So best place is my Instagram, so that's at Gemma V Rose. Also my salon, which is the Iconic Studios. We're a sort of inclusive, safe place, modern alternative salon. So obviously I have to give a shout out to them as well.
Give a shout out to the pole place. So what's your pole dancing club?
Of course. So it's West End Pole on Instagram, West End Pole Dance Academy. And also Fierce and Flexible and Crystal Spikes, who are my two wonderful instructors as well.
Okay, props to them. Thank you for your time.
Right, thank you so much.
Take care, right, bye-bye.
Right, see you later.
And there you have it. Big thanks to this week's guest Gemma for her time. All of Gemma's social media accounts, as well as the lash bar that she works in and her pole dancing club, can be found in the show notes. Usual bits and pieces just to see you out. The best way to keep up to date with future episodes of Lost for Words is to follow using the handle at Lost for Words Pod on both Twitter and Instagram. To support the show, hit the subscribe button wherever you get your podcasts, and for Apple users, a 5-star review in your podcast app means the world. If you like what you hear, then tell someone. Word of mouth is also really powerful in helping us to grow. That is all from me for this week. I am your host Jason, and this has been Poles, Posing and Positivity with Gemma Skinner. I hope to see you back next time for another episode of the Lost for Words podcast.